All right, let's jump into another deep dive. Today we're looking at Bitcoin and, corporate investment, really.
hmm
Got two articles.
Okay.
One from CryptoSlate, all about Microsoft,
All right.
and then one from Cointelegraph, focusing on, predictions.
Prediction.
Yeah, from Standard Chartered Bank
Interesting.
about Bitcoin and the upcoming U.S. election.
Wow. Okay.
So, yeah, things might get pretty interesting.
Yeah, the contrast is interesting. You have some companies really getting into crypto, and then others are just, watching.
Like waiting to see what happens.
Right, exactly. Trying to figure out the whole innovation versus risk thing.
Yeah, feels like a turning point for Bitcoin. Like, will companies really start using it or not?
Yeah.
So let's start with that CryptoSlate article about Microsoft.
Okay.
This is about their shareholders, actually.
Okay.
They get to vote on whether Microsoft should even think about investing in Bitcoin.
Wait, really? Shareholders get to decide that?
Yeah, it's pretty unique. I mean, usually these decisions happen, behind closed doors.
Yeah, totally. Most companies, you never hear about those internal investment strategies.
Right, exactly. So there's this shareholder advisory board. They're the ones who propose the whole thing.
Okay. So they want Microsoft to consider it.
Yeah, to assess Bitcoin as a possible investment. But Microsoft's board, the actual board of directors, they're recommending that the shareholders vote against it.
Oh, wow. So they're like, nope, not interested.
Pretty much.
What's their reason?
Rare.
I mean, why not even consider it?
Well, their argument is that they already have a process for evaluating investments.
Okay, that makes sense.
And that process, it already takes Bitcoin into account. But, they are really emphasizing Bitcoin's volatility.
Yeah, Bitcoin's price goes up and down like crazy, right?
Right, like unpredictable fluctuations. And they say that just clashes with their need for stability.
With their need for what, sorry?
Stability in their treasury operations.
Treasury operations. What does that even mean?
Basically, it's how a company manages its cash flow. Making sure they have enough money to cover expenses and, just keep things running smoothly.
Okay, so like day-to-day stuff.
Right. Exactly. And so they're saying that Bitcoin, with its price swings, it's just too risky to rely on for that kind of thing.
Yeah, I get that. Microsoft is huge, global. They need to be able to plan ahead.
Right.
Can't have things changing so drastically all the time.
And, the article actually mentions that their treasury team, they've actually looked into Bitcoin before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they're still, monitoring it, keeping an eye on the trends.
Okay, so they're aware of it.
They know about it.
Even if they're not ready to invest yet.
Exactly.
It sounds like they're trying to be responsible.
Yeah.
I guess that's the word.
Yeah, I think so. Trying to balance that potential of Bitcoin, with the risks that come with it.
Yeah, trying to be innovative but also stable. It's a tough spot to be in. I bet a lot of companies are facing that same thing right now.
Yeah, totally. It's a big decision.
So what happens next?
Well, the vote's happening December 10th.
Oh, wow. We'll have to wait and see what they decide.
Exactly. We'll have to see how that all plays out. But speaking of different perspectives, that other article, the Cointelegraph one, it has a really different take.
Oh, right, about that Bitcoin prediction. Yeah, what was that all about?
Yeah.
They're a lot more optimistic.
Yeah, bullish, they call it. They're predicting Bitcoin could hit $125,000 by the end of the year.
Whoa. $125,000.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
But there's a catch.
Okay, I figured. What's the catch?
They say it'll only happen if Donald Trump wins the election.
Oh, wow. Tying it to the election. Okay.
Yeah, bold prediction.
That's really interesting. So, what's their logic there? Why would that happen?
So they highlight this analyst, Jeff Kendrick.
Okay.
And he looked at, all sorts of data, betting market probabilities, options information.
Oh, wow. Trying to predict the future.
Right. And he's basically saying if Trump wins, Bitcoin is going to go on a wild ride.
Okay, so what kind of price movements is he talking about?
Well, he thinks Bitcoin will be around $73,000 by election day.
All right.
Then, if Trump wins, he expects a jump, 4%.
Okay.
And then within a few days, another 10% jump.
So up to $80,000.
Yeah, potentially.
Wow.
But what about if Harris wins?
Yeah. Does he think Bitcoin's going to crash?
No, not necessarily. He says it might trade a bit lower at first.
Okay.
But he still thinks it'll end the year around $75,000.
So either way, he's still bullish on Bitcoin.
Yeah. Seems like it. But what I found really fascinating was this other point in the article about the crypto community and their perceptions of, political figures.
Okay.
They tend to see Trump as more favorable to cryptocurrency,
Oh, right. Like he's going to make things easier for Bitcoin or something.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But didn't that Ripple guy, Chris Larson, didn't he donate a bunch to Harris's campaign?
He did.
Yeah, I remember that. Lots of XRP, I think it was.
Yeah. So it's funny how these perceptions and reality don't always line up, huh?
Totally. But, these two articles together, it's like Microsoft, all cautious, and then you've got this bank predicting huge gains.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah. Shows you the range of opinions out there about Bitcoin right now.
Yeah, totally. It's like big established companies, they want stability. Like Microsoft, they're being careful, which makes sense. They're huge.
Yeah.
But then you have these financial institutions, Standard Chartered Bank, and we've seen it with hedge funds too. They're all about the potential gains.
They're willing to take the risk.
Yeah. So how do we make sense of these completely opposite views? What does it all mean for Bitcoin?
Yeah. Will companies start investing in it more? Or will they stay away?
I think the big takeaway here is that everyone is still figuring out Bitcoin.
Okay, but what's going to make them decide? What's going to push companies to say, okay, we're in?
Well, that's a great question. There are a few things that could tip the scales.
Okay, like what?
Well, one big thing is regulation. Like, if governments actually come out and say, yeah, Bitcoin's legit, and create some clear rules, that'll make a huge difference.
Yeah, it's all about knowing the rules of the game.
Right. Exactly. Companies don't want to jump in if they don't know what's allowed or what the risks are.
Especially with something as new as Bitcoin.
Right. And the thing is, the rules are always changing. Each country's doing its own thing. Some are all in on crypto, others are super cautious, and some even hate it.
So it's like companies are in this crazy maze trying to find the right path.
Yeah, good analogy. Yeah. And the choices they make now, it's not just about them. It affects the whole financial world.
It's bigger than just one company, that's for sure.
And we can't forget about the customers.
Yeah, what about the people actually using Bitcoin?
Right. If more people start using it for everyday stuff like buying things, paying bills, that's going to push companies to adapt,
Like if all your customers are using Bitcoin, you kind of have to offer it too, right?
Exactly. Think about online shopping. Companies had to offer it or they'd lose out. We might see the same thing with Bitcoin.
That's a good point. It's like companies are watching what their customers are doing and then trying to react.
Totally. Consumer behavior, it can change everything.
So it's not just what companies think about Bitcoin, it's about their competitors, their customers. It's a lot to consider.
Oh, absolutely. And then there's the tech itself, too.
The blockchain stuff.
Right, the foundation of Bitcoin. As that gets better, more secure, it's going to solve some of the problems people have of it.
So it's not just about, like, the price going up and down. The technology is changing, too.
Exactly. But let's zoom out for a sec. We've been talking big companies, but what about smaller ones?
Yeah, how do they fit into all of this?
Well, they have different challenges, Less money to risk, and maybe not the same expertise to figure out all the crypto stuff.
So those big companies, their choices, they kind of set the example, don't they?
Yeah, if a huge company like Microsoft says, we're investing in Bitcoin, others might feel more comfortable doing it too.
Like it becomes more normal.
Right. But if the big guys stay away, everyone else gets more hesitant.
It's like a domino effect.
Exactly. So, yeah, the stakes are high. Whatever happens in the next few years, it'll change how everyone sees Bitcoin.
It's exciting, but also kind of scary, We're watching a potential financial revolution happen.
Right. It's wild. And who knows what'll happen next?
Speaking of wild, remember that Trump bump we talked about?
Oh, yeah. That Standard Chartered prediction. Bitcoin to the moon if Trump wins.
Right. But some people think Bitcoin's going up no matter who wins.
How do those two ideas fit together?
That's what I'm wondering. Maybe there's something bigger going on than just the election,
That's what it suggests, right? It's not just about one event. It's these bigger trends.
Okay, so if it's not just Trump, what else is pushing Bitcoin up?
Well, we talked about some of them. More people know about Bitcoin. Big investors are getting involved. The technology keeps getting better. More people are using it every day. All that's pushing the price up, no matter what's happening in politics.
So even if there are bumps along the way, long term, Bitcoin's probably going up.
That's what a lot of experts think. Of course, no one can really predict the future. But as Bitcoin becomes more normal, more accepted, the price is likely to keep rising.
But wait, didn't that Cointelegraph article talk about price manipulation too?
Oh, right. They mentioned a whale.
Yeah, some big investor betting on a Trump win. Maybe that's messing with the predictions and the betting markets.
It's a good point. Crypto is still so new compared to like the stock market.
Yeah.
It's easier for someone with a lot of money to move the price around.
So how can regular people like me tell what's real and what's just like some rich guy playing games?
That's the tough part. You got to do your research, be skeptical, don't just believe everything you read, look beyond the hype, Yeah.
Easier said than done, though. Where do you even start?
There are resources out there. Good news sources, websites that analyze stuff, even courses you can take. The more you understand the tech, the market, the better decisions you'll make.
So knowledge is power, as always. I think we've covered a lot today. Microsoft, Standard Chartered, the election, the tech itself, even what it could all mean for society. It's a lot.
Yeah, it is. But that's what makes it so interesting, right? This whole crypto world is changing so fast, it's hard to keep up.
We've only scratched the surface, really.
Exactly. There's so much more to learn. That's why these deep dives are so important.
Yeah, it gets the conversation going.
Right.
Makes you think.
Well, before we wrap up completely, I have one more question for our listeners to think about. So we talked about companies, investors, all that. But what about the rest of us? Like, what if Bitcoin really did become, like, a normal currency? How would that change things?
Yeah, big question. No easy answers there, but definitely worth thinking about. On the one hand, Bitcoin could make finance more fair.
More fair. Yeah, more inclusive. Like, think about people who don't have bank accounts. Millions around the world.
Right.
Bitcoin could give them access to financial stuff, control over their money.
So it could actually be good for people who are, like, shut out of the current system.
Exactly. Level the playing field a bit. But, there are always two sides to the coin.
Okay, so what's the downside?
Well, that volatility we talked about, right?
Mm-hmm.
If Bitcoin's the main currency and the price goes crazy, that's going to mess things up for a lot of people.
Yeah, imagine your savings suddenly worth half as much.
Right, or your salary. Or even just buying groceries. If prices are changing constantly, not good.
And there's that whole thing about Bitcoin being used for, like, illegal stuff, right?
Yeah, money laundering, funding crime, that kind of thing. It's harder to track Bitcoin transactions, which can be good for privacy, but also bad for, stopping criminals.
So it's a trade-off, I guess.
Exactly. More financial freedom, but also more risk. It's not simple, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So we got to talk about it, yeah.
Yeah, figure out the good and the bad.
Right. Weigh the pros and cons and decide what kind of financial world we want to live in.
Because ultimately, technology, Bitcoin, blockchain, it's all just tools, right? And it's up to us to use them wisely.
Well said. We got to be smart about this stuff. Can't just believe the hype or be scared of it.
Got to ask questions. Do your research.
Exactly. That's what we try to do today, right? Microsoft, Standard Chartered, the election, all of it.
It's a lot to take in.
Yeah. The crypto world is wild.
But it's the future, or at least part of it.
Who knows what's next? But it's definitely going to be interesting.
Well, on that note, I think we'll wrap things up here. Thanks to everyone for joining us on this deep dive into Bitcoin and corporate investment.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Keep learning, keep asking questions, and we'll see you next time.